Hey guys, welcome to another 72 DPI online video. Today we're going to be talking about sealed tournaments and more specifically building a sealed deck. We're going to be going over specific tips and tricks and how to kind of build your deck in a certain way to where you're going to have a better time in your matchups. You're going to draw more cards, play more spells, and ultimately, hopefully, win more games. So before we get too far down the rabbit hole, we've got 6 packs of Ikoria here. In a typical sealed tournament, you will open 6 packs of cards either from the same set or some combination of a block, or depending on the rules, it's usually 6 packs of 15 card booster packs. In pre-release, you're going to have usually a sealed promo card. That's going to give you kind of a different experience than what we're going to show you here today. And then finally, there's also some pre-releases where you'll have like a sealed pack, which gives you like a specific color or kind of a archetype to build off of. So we're not going to be touching on those. This is strictly 6 packs of booster packs here, and that's typically how a sealed event is run, with exception to the pre-releases. So take those with a grain of salt. This is a good idea or good guide for a pre-release with just a single card promo. A lot of these tips and tricks will kind of carry over into that. Before we get started, let's kind of get into the basics for our deck and kind of the construction of it. So first off, how many cards, what is the minimum number of cards that we can have in our sealed tournament deck?
40.
Very good. So we know that we want somewhere between 16 and 17 lands, somewhere in there, depending on how big our creatures get. So if we have, a larger creature pool that have larger casting costs, we want to build out a little bit extra land so that we're drawing lands. If you're doing multiple colors, sometimes you'll want an extra land in there, so maybe 17 on that side of things. But typically, you'll want 16, 17 lands in there, which leaves us with 23 spells. So somewhere in there, we've got to build creatures, spells, and artifacts, enchantments. Although you kind of want to stay away from enchantments, especially ones that kind of buff your creatures, because that just makes them, I guess, a more prominent target, and getting blown out, is easier when you've got 2 or 3 cards stacked on your creature. So just kind of food for thought. So what we're going to do first, before we get too far down the deck construction, let's actually open up our cards and see what we've got and kind of go from there. So I'm going to let Eli open up those cards. What you want to do when you're building cards is you want to separate them into piles, because you have about, depending on the tournament organizer, you have somewhere between 40 to 50, sometimes an hour to create your deck. So you want to be as efficient as possible. And this is where you can save a lot of time, where you can actually go through the cards themselves. So what you're wanting to do is separate them out by color, separate out the basic lands, and any special lands you get. Special lands are important to separate out, because that might sway you into another color if you have like a dual land or something. There's tri-lands in this set particular that tap for 3 different colors. So you want to keep an eye on those. You want to take out your basic land and your token and all that stuff. You don't need that anymore. So let's go ahead and separate them out by colors first. Go ahead.
Okay.
So we really don't even want to look at what these cards do at this point. We just want to get them down and onto the table here. Okay. So these are all commons. So let's put these are all commons. The other thing that you could possibly do, that is a colorless card. So we'll put that down at the end. Those are colorless. Okay. So the other thing you can do while you're doing this is you could separate them out by rarity as well. So you could put like your commons in one row, and then you could put your uncommons in the next row above. So like this is a uncommon, so you could say, okay, this is uncommon. Yep, that's a colorless, so he's going to go on top there. And then your commons are all in one row, and then your uncommons, and then your rares. So then here's your multicolor card. So I always put all my multicolor cards at the top in a separate pile. Really what that's going to do is, because if we're not even going to be in those colors, we can just discard them all together. So that's a rare artifact. So let's put that up with our uncommons. So we've got a foil common black card, so that's going to go with them. And then we got a dual land, so we want our dual lands to go up here. And then our token, we don't need our token. All right, so this is kind of how you're going to go through. You're not really going to read the cards right yet. You're really just kind of getting them organized, and that's kind of what it's what you're focused on, is getting these cards down on the table, seeing what, if you've only got like five cards from white, you're really not going to choose white because you just don't have enough to build a deck. There you go, red. Got black, green. So the reason why we separate out the uncommons and the rares, up here because he's a common, or a rare, is mainly because those are the ones that are going to be a little bit more powerful. Those are going to kind of sway you into certain colors and things like that. Rares and mythics are going to be usually like big, bulky creatures or huge game-shifting spells. So having an idea on what you have in that color kind of can dictate what colors you go into. So like if you have some really good, rares and uncommons, that could push you like, okay, I've got 2 really good spells in blue and 3 really good ones in red. Let's take a look at the commons and see if those kind of match up. If they do, we can start constructing a deck. And that's really kind of what we're doing here, is seeing where our rares, our uncommons, and our mythic rares are kind of seated at. Obviously, it's not the end-all be-all if we don't get any good rares or uncommons and things like that. You can build a deck out of commons. You can build a deck out of anything. It's just, that's a good place to start. Okay, red. Blue. It's an uncommon.
That's cool.
So here's another card. This is an interesting card. So before he opened up this card. It is Channeled Force. It's a red and a blue card. So it's a red and a blue card. It requires 1 red and 1 blue. So that's one thing. Now this is a different card that he opened up. This is either 1 blue, or you could pay either blue or white for this card. So this could technically go in a blue-red deck, even though we don't have white in our deck. So you could pay, it's got the hybrid mana, so we can keep this at the top as well. So I always keep those separate from our multicolored cards. So that way, if we pick one of those colors, like if we're playing a white deck, we can play that deck, play that card even though we're not playing blue. So that's red, uncommon. So that is red, black. So just put that up here. It's a rare.
Then land.
So land, and we don't need that. So go ahead and open up the next one. So we're 4 down. So this is our 4th pack. See anything good you like so far?
There's like big dinosaurs in the shark that.
Sharks. Okay.
The shark with feet.
The shark with feet. Shark beast. Ooh. Keep going. I gotcha. There you go. Another uncommon.
That's the same shark beast.
That's the same shark guy, yeah, pouncing shark. Yeah.
Another shark.
Yep, so he's a rare.
Well, we have that card, but not foil.
Okay, so those are tokens, and lands go up here.
It's funny.
So does it kind of makes sense where we're separating cards out? I know you originally were separating out cards by color, but separating them out by what rarities you've got, you kind of get a little bit better idea. Like, okay, this is a 5-drop. That's a card that's a finisher. So clearly, if we've got a card that end out the game, we want to be in blue. We want to be in blue. Like, it's kind of an idea to it's kind of a good practice, kind of getting that habit of separating them out, at least by color. You don't have to go to this degree where you're separating out the rarities. I gotcha. Separating out the rarities, but it can help you. And, you know, it kind of can give you a little bit of an edge when it's coming down to, like, your time to actually build. Oh, that was weird. Is it backwards? That was weird.
I think so.
This pack is backwards.
Because this is the rare.
Yeah, so that's... Yeah, there's the rare. So we got duplicate rares. Uncommon. That's uncommon. Remember this set this backwards. Yeah. That was weird.
This is uncommon. It's double.
Okay, so that's going to go up here with our double colors. Black, uncommon.
I had that one last time.
Black, uncommon. Green, common. So the rest are going to go down this row.
No rares in green.
We still have one more pack.
Yeah.
And honestly, you know, you kind of want a clump of rares and uncommons. Like right now, just looking at the colors that we've got here, our rares, we've got what, 5 uncommon rares and uncommons in blue, 2 in red, 3 in white, and 3 in black. We've also got a black and red rare and a blue and red uncommon and a red and white uncommon. So right now it looks like black and blue are going to be our kind of heavy hitters right now, but we'll see.
See what comes out of this last pack.
Yeah, that's red, white, black, green, I gotcha.
That always happens to me when I place a card down.
So that is a colorless. So yep, right there. There you go. Uncommon.
I keep them.
That's all right. So black uncommon, white uncommon, and we got a white rare. So we put him there. And then 2 of those. Okay. Okay, so now we've got... I'll take your garbage. So now we've got all of our packs open. We've got them separated by color, and then by rarity with uncommons, or commons, uncommons, rares, mythics, which we didn't open any mythics, did we?
No.
That stinks. And then we've got our multicolor cards, and then our lands. So our lands up here. So we've got a couple dual lands that could help out. We've got a red-blue, a blue-green, and a white-black. So that's something to think of. Those lands, they do come into play tapped, but when they come into play, you gain a life, which in limited formats like sealed, an extra life here, there, incidental health is not a bad thing. Now, I wouldn't play those specifically for the life gain. So like if we were playing like an all-blue deck, I wouldn't play like the blue-red one just to get the extra life token in there. That's not really worth, you know, being a turn behind for the tapped land. But if they're in the colors that we're looking at, sure. So what I would do at this point, we need to make some really important decisions. So we need to look at what cards we have are the strongest. You know, we're looking to make a bell curve, and kind of what that means is, you know, we're wanting to have, you know, a very small handful of creatures that cost between 1 and 2. A larger pool that are between 3 and 4, and then a smaller pool that are like 5 and 6. So we want kind of a nice bell curve. The reason for this is you want to be able to play something on turn 1. You want to be able to play something on turn 2 if possible. You don't want too many single or 1 or 2 drops, because you don't want to be playing those at the very end of the game. You want to close out the game with your heavy hitters. So that's why you have, you know, few on each end and more in the middle with the, you know, the 3, 4, and 5 kind of hitters. With that being said, we know we have to have 23 cards because we're going to put 17 land in. We'll just call it 17 right now. If we need to make a change, we can. So we're looking for 23 cards to build a deck. Keep in mind, in limited games like this, the games are won on battlefield. They're won with the bigger creatures. They're won with, you know, stronger creatures. Creatures that have evasion are usually a big thing. So things like flying, trample, menace is another good one. Unblockability.
Lifelink.
Lifelink isn't too bad. Lifelink's not really evasion, but lifelink is good for to help give you a little bit of a life total edge. That'll help you get to a later game. So, for example, if you have 3 or 4 really big creatures, you might want to include some lifelink creatures early on in the game so you can kind of get those life points up a little bit. That way you can get to your bigger creatures. The other thing that you want to look at when building a deck and considering a deck is removal. So like I said, the games are won on the battlefield. So you want to have strong creatures, but you also want to be able to have good answers for your opponents who have creatures. So looking at destroy target creature, return target creature to his owner's hand. You want to look at like damaging spells. Like this one here says it deals 1 damage to each creature your opponent controls. So that's another 1 damage, 2 damage. You can also look for enchantments that give like -1, -1, or -2, -2, and play those on like 1 or 2 drops where it would actually kill the creature. So that's kind of the removal hierarchy, if you will. So the best one is obviously destroy target creature, and the worst one would probably be something like return target creature to owner's hand, where it's not really removal, it's kind of more of a tempo gain, and then everything in the middle kind of interacting with the creatures. So let's kind of look at what we're going to build here. So I would say the most cards that we opened were definitely blue. Yeah. We've got some a good amount of white cards and a decent amount of black cards. So why don't we do this? I would say the first thing we would do is go through our uncommons and our rares and mythics and take a close look and see which ones we like and kind of go from there. Maybe that'll lead us into a specific color. So let's take a look. So this is Mystical Subdual. It's 2 mana. It's one colorless, 1 blue. It's an enchantment. It has flash, so that means we can play it on our opponent's turn or at instant speed. It enchants a creature and it gives them -2, -0, and loses all abilities. So this isn't a bad card. This is not bad. So like if you've got a creature that has like Death Touch, or if they have a creature that has like Death Touch or Menace or Flying, this might be a good card. I would say this is a maybe if we don't have a lot of like flying creatures to block other flying creatures. We've got Ferocious Great Shark. So this is kind of a finisher. So this is 2 blue, 3 colorless. It's a shark. It's a 5/4. It too has flash, so we can play it at instant speed, which is good, right? So this could be used as a kill spell, because like you would say let's just say for example, someone attacks us with this 2/2, right? And we can say we can play it on before blocks, right? And then we can say we're going to block with our shark. So our shark will effectively kill this and stay alive, and then it'll also give us something to attack with on the next turn. So right away, 5/4 with flash for 5 mana. That's not too bad. It also says when it enters the battlefield, counter target artifact or creature spell. So this is really good for when your opponent's playing their bomb, like their big creature. So like when they're getting up to 5 or 6 mana, you leave your 5 mana open and you say, they play their spell and you say, in response to you playing that, I'm going to play my Great Shark, counter your creature spell, and then he's on the battlefield ready to attack when they pass the turn. So that's a good one to keep. Pouncing Shore Shark, we actually have 2 of those. Those cost it's 1 blue, 1 blue, 4 generic. It's a 4/3. It's got mutate for 1 blue and 3 generic. It has flash 2. So again, flash, not too shabby. Whenever this creature mutates, you may return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. So that's pretty good for for incidental removal, right? Remember we talked about removal, how that wasn't too, that was kind of like the worst of the removal spells. So those two aren't bad. Now keep in mind those 3 are 5 mana each, right? Yeah. So that's pretty much almost the top end. I would say maybe 1 or 2 more higher casting cost spells, but you don't want to go too much higher than that. Those are kind of the top end. Those are the ways that we're going to win the game. Now, if we go mutate, like a mutate kind of the mutate way, and really build a mutate deck, we could really do some damage because you can bounce a lot of creatures, like bounce their three blockers and then attack in. I mean, think about it. This is what 8, 5, 9, 13. So that's 13 damage right there if we were to swing with all 3 one time. So that's a pretty good high end. We've also got this frog creature here. He's a 1/3 for 2 mana. Each creature spell you cast costs 1 less to cast if it has mutate. Whenever you cast a creature spell, if it has mutate, draw a card, then discard a card. So I would say these 2 cards are kind of tied. If we go the mutate way, we're going to put him in. It only costs 2. If we don't kind of go to the mutate, we want to have an answer to some creatures and losing abilities and things like that, we can go with the Mystic. So those are pretty good. Let's look at. We're gonna skip red for now. Let's look at white. What kind of white spells do we got?
We got this like cat.
So we've got Cub Warden. So it costs 1 white.
3
generic. What's its attack and defense?
It's a 3/5 with mutate.
2 white and 2 generic. It's got lifelink, and then what does it say? Whenever
this creature mutates, it creates 2 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink.
Okay. So if we went blue white with mutate, that would be a good mutate card, right? So we could mutate that and create 2 creatures. So it's a 3/5 for 4 mana, which isn't too bad. That's not too bad as far as playing it with lifelink. If you get the mutate cost on it, that's again, it's a good thing to have. Okay, what else we got?
Storm Wild Carp.
Okay.
Carpador.
Yep. How much mana does it cost?
1 white, 2 generic.
Yep. And what's its numbers?
1/3 with flying.
Yep.
If
if non-combat damage would be dealt to Stormwild, prevent that damage and put a +1/+1 counter on Stormwild for each 1 damage prevented this way. So this is a 1/3 for 3 mana. If you block early, like if you block a 1/1, it doesn't take any damage, and you put a counter on it, it becomes a 2/4. So then, basically, the idea is you want to be able to block creatures early. That's okay card. I think it's going to definitely prevent people from attacking in with like their individual creatures. If you could pump him up a couple notches without having to use his ability to where he's attacking in and causing some real damage. I think the true testament to this creature is if you can get 2 counters on him, making him a 3/5, I think that's where it starts to become a threat where they start throwing creatures at it. So that one's not too bad. What else do we got? Hold them up here. Sanctuary Lockdown.
It costs 1 white, 2 generic. It's not a human.
It's an enchantment.
Humans you control get 1/+1/+1.
And then it has an activated ability, which you pay 2 generic. You tap 2 untapped humans you control. Tap target creature and opponent controls. If we go the mutate route, this is not going to be valuable to us anyway because you can't mutate humans. Enchantments like this, they're just if we went the humans route, then I guess that would be okay. But we'll just keep looking. What else we got?
Will of the All Hunter.
It's an instant speed. How much does it cost?
1 generic, 1 white.
Yep. And what does it do?
Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If it's blocking, instead put 2 +1/+1 counters on it.
And then it also has, what is that at the bottom?
Cycling
2. So cycling is a good ability that you can pay 2, discard this card, and draw a new card. Since this is actually a pretty good combat trick, Like I was saying with the storm wild here, getting 2 counters on it would really benefit this creature in the early game. So playing this on turn 3 and then waiting till turn 4 to maybe chump block one of their guys, and then playing this to give it +2 +1/+1 counters, but kind of buffing up its defense, getting that extra counter for the damage. So those 2 cards right there, that's a good 2-card combo. Not to mention, I mean, giving for 2 mana +2/+2 is not bad. If you have it in your hand, you draw it late game where it's not really going to make a difference. You can cycle it away. If it's early game and you don't have a good target, you can cycle it. Cycling really kind of bumps it up a little bit as far as the usability. If it didn't have cycling, I wouldn't use it. So what's our last couple cards here?
Swallow Whole.
Swallow Whole. So it's a sorcery. It costs 1 white. As an additional cost to cast this spell, tap an untapped creature you control. Exile target tapped creature. Put a +1/+1 counter on the creature tapped you pay this spell's of activation cost with. So this is a good removal spell. Obviously, you have to have an untapped creature to cast it, but you're getting kind of incidental, an incidental buff. So like with our Stormwild creature here, giving that +1/+1 counter would be fantastic. Exiling a creature is also fantastic. The one downfall to this is it's a sorcery. So essentially what that means is you have to leave a creature up to block and kind of bluff the block, and then obviously you'll have to take some damage on the front side of that, and then you'll exile the card. So this wouldn't be too bad removal. The last card we have here is Fight as 1. It's 1 white. It's an instant. You get to choose one or both modes. It says target human creature you control gets +1/+1 and gains indestructible until end of turn. And then the other one is target non-human creature you control gets +1/+1 and gains indestructible until end of turn. So it's the same thing, just human, non-human. So this will work whether we're playing humans or not. The indestructible is great. This could be used as a combat trick where we could actually kill one of their creatures. Giving it +1/+1 till end of turn is kind of incidental, but it could definitely be used. So those aren't too bad. Let's look at our black cards here. Insatiable Hemophage. So this is creates a nightmare. It is a 3/3 for 1 black and 3 generic. It has Mutate for 1 black and 2 generic. It has Death Touch. And then whenever this creature mutates, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of times that this creature mutated. Now, this is actually, if we go down the mutate route, this is actually a great way to have recursion, right? Being able to cast the same spell multiple times. In this case, having the same ability triggered multiple times. Depending on how many mutate cards we have, I would say if you have at least 5 mutate cards, this becomes a viable kind of path. If you don't have that many, this probably, if you can get 3 or 4 in there, maybe. But once you hit the 5 range and you're triggering this maybe 2 or 3 times a game, that's going to be a pretty good effect. So let's go to the next one. So let's see here.
Grim Dancer.
Grim Dancer. How much does Grim Dancer cost?
1 genetic.
1 generic.
And 2 black.
Okay, and then what's its ability, or what's its numbers?
3/3.
All right, and what does it do?
Grim Dancer enters the battlefield with your choice of 2 different counters.
Menace,
Death Touch,
and Lifelink. So that's pretty good. I don't know how often you're going to be choosing Death Touch with that. Maybe late game choosing Death Touch would be a good one. That way you're not, you can hold back some of their bigger creatures. Early game, I would probably go with Menace and Lifelink, because that would make sure that you can get in for a couple points of damage, and then also get some life kicked back your way. So that's actually a pretty good creature. That's a good one. So then we got 2 Dringe Bats. What do they cost?
They cost 2 black and 2 genetic.
2 generic. 2 black and 2 generic. And then what's his number?
3/3.
Okay. And then he has mutate for 4 generic and 2 black. He's got flash, flying, and then whenever this creature mutates, destroy target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. So, we got 2 of those. That's pretty heavy hitting, right? We're talking about removing creatures and destroying creatures. That's a huge payoff if we can mutate that card multiple times and kind of get rid of a couple things. So it's starting to look like blue-black mutate might be our go-to because we've got those 2 are really good. The life linker is really good for damage and life, and then we've got the nightmare that drains the opponent for life and stuff like that. So the nice thing about these, though, and I don't know if you noticed this, all these cards, the Dryge. So I don't know if you noticed this, but the bat, those cost 4, and these, well, I guess not. Never mind. So black is actually looking pretty strong as far as finisher goes. Same with blue. The nice thing is we don't, the bats, they're 4, so they're not really too high. We're getting a little bit high with the 5 converted mana cost sharks. So I would almost consider 4 kind of being mid-range. Let's see here. White, we're not missing out on too much. We've got, 2 mutate cards there. And then we've got a mutate card there. We've got 3 mutate cards. Yeah, 3 mutate cards in here. We got the 2 bats and then the nightmare. Let's see here. If we play blue, we can play this guy. So this is our Skybounder. He is 1 generic, and then you could pay 2 blue or 2 white or some combination of the 2. For us, if we went this route, we could pay 2 blue. So he's got flying. He's a 2/2 creatures control with creatures you control flying have spells your opponents cast target this creature costs 2 more. So that would help with our bats. That's a good sign. So we could definitely play him. Let's see here. Those we couldn't use any of those. We don't have any dual color lands. So let's just assume what the deck is telling us, and we're gonna go blue black. Okay, so we're gonna get all the other cards out of here. Yep, we can get those out of here.
I'll get these ones.
We haven't looked at those yet. We want to keep those because those will fit into any deck. Let's take a look at those real quick. So let's look at our artifacts and our colorless spells. So let's see. This artifact, this crystal taps for blue, red, and white, and has cycling. So it's not in our colors. So we're not gonna go with that one. Crystalline Giant. This is a 3/3 for 3 mana. So that's a good conversion, right? Mm-hmm. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose a kind of counter at random that Crystalline Giant doesn't have. Have on it. From among flying, first strike, death touch, hexproof, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, vigilance, and +1/+1. Put a counter of that kind on this giant. That's a good card. 3/3 for 3 mana. That's a good card, and he gets counters added to him. So we're definitely gonna probably be playing him.
Yeah.
Our other our other artifact is 3 mana. It's a mana rock, is what they call them. It's a white, black, green, and cycling, just like the other one. It's not in our colors, so we're not going to play it. There's no reason to play that one. What's our color of the spells look like? These are pretty cut and dry. At least those were. So this is, let's see here, Fairfinder is a 3 mana 1/1 fox. It has vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. This wouldn't be so bad if we were playing like a third color. So like if we were like splashing white to get those other mutate cards in, being able to that way this kind of could act as like a land as well, because we could search for it and put it into our hand. I don't think we're gonna need that. This is Mysterious Egg. It's a 1 mana 0/2. Whenever a creature mutates, put a +1/+1 counter on it.
So it can attack?
It can attack whenever this. Oh, it says okay. So whenever this creature mutates, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So that's going to be good because we're going to be mutating creatures, right? So you could, basically you've got your bat down right, and you could say, all right, I'm going to mutate the bat with this mysterious egg. So now whenever the bat mutates, not only are you going to kill a creature, but you're also going to add a +1/+1 counter to this bat. So it's going to get bigger each time it mutates, along with killing things. So that's going to definitely go in there. It only costs 1, and it's a good early drop. It's a 0/2, so it can block 1/1s pretty easily. Let's see here. So we've got a adaptive Shimmerer. It's a 0/0 for 5 mana. It's got flash, and when it enters the battlefield, put 3 +1/+1 counters on it. I'm going to say no on that one. I don't think we really... That's 5 mana. That's a lot for our top end. We're already kind of at the limit with our sharks. And our bats are kind of pushing us over. So we really need to kind of dive in and see what...
small ones.
Kind of small and medium we have to kind of balance this out. So, yeah, we'll keep that guy. That guy's a no. So we've got our blue and black commons. Let's go through the blue first. So we know that with our rares and uncommons that we've got a pretty big top end, right? So let's kind of look, and you can this is kind of what I was talking about with like the curve. You want to kind of spread out your cards that are going into your deck based on how much they cost. So we're going to do that real quick and kind of see where we're at. Actually, we're not too bad, right?
Yeah.
So we've got a lot. We've got most of our cards are in the center with 3 and 4. We've got a couple early ones and three big ones. So we want to kind of even this out a little bit. And who knows, maybe we can go back and add in some bigger creatures. So let's look at our commons here and see what we've got and kind of flush it out. So we've got 23 cards to fill. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we have 11 cards to pick from here and there. So let's start. Alright guys, so let's take a look at our deck here that Eli and I created. This is our blue-black deck. We did splash a little bit of red, and we will be going over that here shortly. I just wanted to take a second here to look at our overall deck and just kind of explain the mana curve and the bell curve that we've got displayed here. So as you can see on the far left here, we've got our smaller individual creatures and spells costing 1 and 2 mana. You don't want to have too many of these spells because obviously towards the end of the game you don't want to be casting 1 and 2 drops. You want to be casting your larger creatures. However, being able to cast things early in the game to kind of give you that early advantage is a good tactic to use, especially if you've got a good mid and late game plan kind of centered, kind of carved out. Next up in the center here, you'll see our 3 and our 4 drops. These are kind of like our bread and butter cards. These are the cards that we're hoping to get to play on turn 3 and on turn 4. But if not, these are good turn 5s drops as well. They affect the board in a positive way for us. They offer some type of advantage, and we'll go over those here shortly. And then our bombs, our big creatures, our game-ending cards are on the far right. Those cost 5 and 6 mana. These are the cards that we want to draw late game or have in our hand mid game so that we can play them accordingly to what our opponent is doing. We've got 7 swamps, 6 islands, and 4 mountains in our deck. We decided to go with 17 total lands, which is kind of the general rule of thumb. 17 lands and 23 spells. We are a relatively heavy creature spell deck. We're relying a lot on our creatures to do removal tasks and things like that, drawing abilities and things like that, where normally you would have spells, non-creature spells, to accommodate and accomplish those tasks. So like I said, we are very creature heavy, and we wanted to make sure that those creatures performed multiple tasks, not just gumming up the battlefield. So let's go ahead and jump into our first set of cards here, and we've got all the way at the very beginning of the game our 1-drop. So we've got our turtle 0/5 for 1. He's got one job and one job alone. This is to play as early as humanly possible so that we can stop any aggressive strategies where your opponent's playing 1-drops with haste, or 2 bigger creatures at the lower converted mana cost. This is to stop them. So the turtle does a good job stopping 1, 2, sometimes 3 and 4 drops. Obviously he is meant to block. He's not going to be gaining any +1/+1 counters or anything like that. Just really there to block ahead and get us to our middle game, which is where all of our good large synergistic creatures are. The next 2 cards here do synergize with our mutate ability. That's kind of one of the abilities that we centered our deck around. So Mysterious Egg is a 1-drop. It's a 0/2, not nearly as strong as the turtle, but it still offers a blocker for turn 1 and turn 2 creatures. Whenever this creature mutates, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So this is a great host creature, giving us the ability to give him +1/+1 counters, as well as the other abilities that the actual mutate card provides us. Our Poliwag, this is a way to reduce the spells that have mutate on them. So this is a 1/3 for 2 mana. Again, he can block just as well as the egg. Again, he's more or less a creature that's not really going to get into combat very often, unless it's beneficial to us, but he is going to offer some static abilities like cost reduction for our mutate ability, and then also a little bit of card draw here. So whenever we cast a creature that has mutate, we'll be able to draw a card and then discard our worst card in hand. So overall, pretty good card, synergistic with our mutate archetype. Next up, we have our actual mutate creatures. We opened up 2 of the Dirgebats. This is a 3/3 flyer that has flash, and then whenever this creature mutates, you get to destroy target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. Now, planeswalkers aren't going to come up very often, but the destroy creature clause is really kind of what we're playing this creature for. Since we didn't open up very much removal spells in our pool, and what we did open was very thin through multiple colors, we didn't have a way to include a lot of removal spells from a single color, so we really kind of are relying on our creatures to provide that type of functionality. So with this creature, playing him as a 3/3 creature for 4 flying flash is a great option. It's a little expensive, paying 6 for a 3/3 flying flash that destroys a creature when it mutates. So obviously when you mutate this onto another creature, for example our Mysterious Egg, you can destroy a creature of your choice. So while it is expensive, this would make a good host creature. So play him for 4, and then using our next creature, this Nightmare here, it's a 3/3 for 4, but its mutate costs less. So mutating for 1 black, 2 generic onto the bat gives us the option to destroy a creature when we mutate him, and then also the Nightmare gives us a kind of a drain effect. So whenever this creature mutates, target opponent, or each opponent, loses 1 life, and you gain X life, where X is the number of times this creature is mutated. So if we were to mutate the Nightmare onto the bat, that would allow us to destroy a creature, and then also drain our opponent for 1 life, and then we gain 1 life. The nice thing about this is it's a repeatable effect. So we can, if we were to, again, take our next creature here, Pouncing Shore Shark, and mutate that onto the bat as well. Now we've mutated 2 times. The shark will allow us to bounce a creature. We're going to drain our opponent for 2 and gain 2 life, and then we're going to destroy another creature on top of that. So again, this is kind of a perfect example of what I mean by our deck is using its creatures and as spells to kind of gain board control and gum up what our opponents are doing on the battlefield. The last card here with our mutate ability is our Red Splash. This is our Poker Parrot. This is 1 red and 3 generic for a 3/4 with mutate. Again, this is kind of like the Nightmare card where the mutate cost is less than the converted mana cost of the spell or of the creature. Mutate for 1 red, 2 generic. This is another example of us looking for more removal. So not only does this card fill the mutate archetype, but also gives us an extra removal card in the sense that we can ping smaller creatures with its tap ability. This creature deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of times this creature is mutated. Now, the reason why we chose this card to splash is this card offers several different benefits. The main one being it can never be outclassed. So even if we just mutate this card 1 time and we can clear out the 1 toughness creatures on the board, and let's say we get to mid to late game where this creature is no longer able to kill creatures, even with combat damage taking into account, where like we're blocking with a 3/3 to a 4/4 and then dealing 1 extra damage to kill that 4/4. When this card kind of gets to that point, we can turn our sights on our opponent and start tapping and dealing 1 damage to our opponent, or we can increase this creature's effectiveness by mutating it again and again to give it that ability to take down a 2/2 or a 3/3. So we've got a lot of different avenues to go with this. This card is very versatile and definitely worth the splash. So next up is kind of our middle of the road type of creatures. They don't really fall in the mutate archetype, although some of them will benefit from it. But these are just great value creatures. So Thieving Otter is a pretty good card. It's a 2/2 for 3 mana, and then whenever it deals damage to an opponent, you get to draw a card. So kind of going back to our Porky Parrot, mutating onto the Otter and just being able to tap to deal 1 damage to an opponent and just draw a card is great value. Getting 2-3 cards off of that single card is a great way to kind of force our opponent to get rid of the Otter, because drawing cards is a very powerful ability and should always be considered whenever building a deck. And this, that 2-card combo is an easy way that we can deal damage without putting the Otter in any sort of combat scenario. There is another speaking of combat with the Phase Dolphin here, that is exactly what we plan on doing, is putting the Phase Dolphin in the red zone, attacking with the Otter, and then making the Otter so it's unblockable. This is a little bit more of a risk because we are risking the Dolphin being killed. We'll still obviously get the 1 card draw at least. We're banking on the toughness of the Dolphin to kind of give us that 1 or 2 extra activations, because it does have 4 toughness. So your opponent is going to likely have to block with multiple creatures, and that could really set up a chance for us to capitalize on a combat trick later on in the game. So we'll talk about those spells here in a minute. But this is, this Phase Dolphin's great for targeting the Otter, but also targeting our mutate creatures. The next card is Grim Dancer. This is a 3 mana 3/3, so already seems pretty on par with what we're looking for, but it also enters the battlefield with 2 different abilities, either Menace, Death Touch, or Lifelink. Two of those 3. Death Touch is really good early on. Death Touch is good late in the game. It stops those big creatures from attacking into us. So like if they've got a 5/5 or a 6/6 attacking in, and we have a 3/3 Death Toucher, they just don't want to attack in. So it'll really fend off those large attacks early on. Lifelink and Menace are definitely the way you kind of want to go if you want to go for that aggro style deck. Menace allows us to get in for a few extra hit points just because the actual creature itself requires 2 blockers. Now, you can also mix Menace and Death Touch together. This allows you to assign combat damage as need be. So if they block with, like, let's say a 2/2 and like a 3/3, normally the Grim Dancer would only be able to kill the 2/2. However, if it kills the 2/2 with Death Touch or whatever, then it deals 1 damage to the 3/3. That 1 damage is enough to kill it. So it makes blocking very, very difficult. Lifelink is probably the weakest of the 3 abilities, but in a deck where you're trying to make it to the mid game, lifelink, getting those extra few points of life, it's definitely worth investing some cards into. Next up, we've still got some more of these kind of value creatures. The Skybounder is a flying creature that's 2/2, and basically spells that your opponents cast that target any flying creature cost 2 more to cast. So this is, we don't have a lot of flying creatures, but this allows us to just protect those flying creatures a little bit more. And what we're trying to do with this deck is mutate onto a flying creature, or mutate a flying creature in general. So this will just give us added protection for those threats that we put on the battlefield. And itself has flying. 2/2 for 3 for flying. With flying is a great card by itself. The added clause for the protection is just a bonus on top. Crystalline Giant is next. This is a 3/3 colorless 3/3 for 3 mana. So already it's well deserved card, but the ability itself just makes this over the top auto include in any deck that you build. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose a kind of counter at random that Crystalline Giant does not have on it from among flying, first strike, death touch, hexproof, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, vigilance, and +1/+1. Put a counter of that kind on Crystalline Giant. So the reason why this card is important in our deck is because limited and sealed games tend to go long, right? Turn 10, turn 11, turn 12, those are not unheard of. It's going to be a slow grind, and playing this on turn 3 is like the best case scenario, because as the game goes on, this creature just gets better. The other thing that's nice about it is it doesn't require anything from the player itself, so you don't even have to attack with this creature. Just at the beginning of combat, it gets better. So the longer you have this in play, obviously the better. Even playing this on turn 5, turn 6, turn 7, and getting 2 or 3 of these abilities, while some of them are better than others, any ability is going to improve this creature. And at the cost of 3 mana, this card is pushed. Our Crab is the next one. This one was a little bit of a tough choice for us. This would probably be the first card that we get removed if we were to kind of change our deck around a little bit, but it's a 1/6 with flash for 4 mana. Usually you want your big body creatures, your big blockers, at their 1, 2, or maybe 3 mana spells. 4 is kind of pushing it, but the good news is with this having flash, we can use this as a combat trick to block one of your opponent's larger creatures. Having 6 toughness is great. Obviously this thing is not going to kill much, but keeping this in your hand until your opponent plays their bomb rare or their big creature and swings in, you can flash this in for relatively low mana cost, and get yourself an extra turn. Next up, we've got our end game bombs that we're looking at here. So we've got our Great Shark for 5. It's a 5/4 with flash, and when it enters the battlefield, you get to counter target artifact or creature spell. These 2 cards between the Great Shark and the Leech are going to play completely separate from each other. So the Great Shark we're going to want to hold in our hand until our opponent plays their rare. So for example, if we're at a stalemate with the board and we're waiting for, you're just going to wait until your opponent plays their bomb rare. They're going to pick it up and play it. You're going to flash this in and counterspell it. So you're going to want to make sure that you have the mana up to do that, but that's really the best case scenario, and it's going to take a lot of discipline to hold this card in your hand and not play it, especially when you're going draw pass, and kind of at that stalemate. I would say after you get so far, you're really going to want to kind of reevaluate, like, okay, how long do I wait? If I had played this a couple turns ago, the game would be over. So you're really going to have to evaluate that on a turn-by-turn basis. Now, Blitz Leech, on the other hand, is a 5/2 for 6 mana. This is a card where after your opponent has already played their creature and is in in the battlefield, on the battlefield, tapped and attacking, that's when you're going to want to play something like a Blitz Leash. 5/2, when it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-2, and you remove all counters. So effectively, this card can take down something with 7 toughness between its 5 power and the ability of giving -2 to the target creature. So unlike the shark, this is going to be played when your opponent's already played the creature and has it tapped and attacking. Very rarely will you use this as a creature to attack with. This is more of, like I said, one of those creatures that we use for removal. Then we've got our 6 non-creature spells. So we got Anticipate, which is a great card to help us draw and look through our deck. This is just kind of an auto-include, giving yourself 2, 3 of these is a great way to kind of look through your deck and get the card that you need for the situations you're in. Corpse Churn is another card that we're including in our deck. We did open 2 of these, and I feel like maybe we should have added a second one, maybe taking out the crab and putting a second copy of Corpse Churn in. Corpse Churn allows us to replay our cards from our graveyard. So at instant speed, we mill the top 3 cards of our graveyard, of our library, to our graveyard. Then we return a creature card from our graveyard to our hand. So like I said, this deck is very, very creature heavy, and getting one of our big creatures that have already left the battlefield, or obviously if a card has affected the game enough to where your opponent has decided to destroy it, getting it back is just going to be a good thing. Milling the top 3 cards can be a cost, so putting multiple of these in your deck can be a rough patch if you get too overzealous with them. So use those with caution. The last 2 cards here, we have our Combat Tricks. These are both instants. Unexpected Fangs puts a +1/+1 counter and a lifelink counter on one of our creatures. Not a lot of buff here, but it's 2 mana, so it's nice that the abilities stick around. The +1/+1 could help and give us chances for our creature to survive, giving that extra bump in toughness, but also giving us some extra life points to get us to the middle game. So we've got 2 of those, and then we've got 2 Unlikely Aids. These offer +2/+0 and indestructible to one of our creatures for 2 mana. So again, this could be a combat trick where we save one of our big creatures, stop damage from coming in. We could also use this for a way to remove an opponent's creature. So like, let's say they're attacking with a 5/5 into our 3/3 or our 4/4. This allows us to pay 2 mana and remove their creature. Obviously, we're going to lose we will not lose our creature because of the indestructible. So this is just one of those cards that gives us the ability to say, okay, we're going to save our creature and remove yours. So play this sparingly, because you want to make sure that the target that you're removing is something that's affecting your board, whether that's stopping you from attacking in or providing some type of static ability that's giving your opponent an edge over you in the long term. So you've got 2 of those put in there. Definitely something that is going to help our creature-based deck out. And that's our deck, guys. So I'm kind of excited to try it out. I'm glad Eli was able to help me put this together, and I think we did pretty good based on the cards that we selected, the cards that we had to select from, rather. So let's go ahead and get back to the video and give you our final thoughts. But anyway, guys, so that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope it kind of helped you out a little bit. Again, like the big thing is early on getting your cards separated out and finding out what uncommons, what rares, what mythic rares you have, and kind of going from there. So, like I said, I really appreciate you watching. Let me know in the comments below if you are going to a pre-release. We've got pre-release coming up for Core Set 2021. Obviously, that's not this set, but again, having an idea of what cards are out there, and putting a deck together that has a good bell curve, making sure that you've got good removal, good creatures at each level of your mana base, of your converted mana cost bell curve. Making sure that you have creatures where you need them in order to play spells. Playing more spells is always a good thing. So making sure that you've got creatures to play. Fill up that battlefield and make sure that you're swinging in when you can, and just dealing damage and gaining life, and looking for those creatures with evasion. All that stuff kind of comes into focus when it comes to building a strong sealed deck. So Hope you guys appreciate the video, got some value out of it. I want to thank Eli for joining me and helping me crack open these packs.
What?
Did you learn something?
Yes.
Yeah? Are you excited to build a deck? And sweet.
Yes.
So hope you guys have fun at your next pre-release or sealed event, and we will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.
Bye.